So recently I had a launch of a course and it ended up being a complete and total failure. I'm sure that there are other people who have been here before where they get really excited about their launch and then it just ends up really producing nothing. And so I want to talk about what happened in my launch, why it was a failure, and then what I learned from it. So I launched a course called the Scientific Dissertation Academy, and I did this launch through a webinar. And so I had about 68 people sign up for my webinar. I had about 13 people attend the live event with other people watching the webinar offline. I ended up making 2 sales, which the conversion rate from that is, pretty decent. It's about a little bit over 2%, so it was okay. And then I ended up getting 2 refunds. So ultimately, I made no money and I actually lost money because of the transaction fees that occur. So ultimately, this launch that I spent all this time in making this course, all this time in preparing a webinar, was a complete and total failure. But from that, I've learned a lot about what I did wrong and how to make it better. So the one positive that did come out of it is I got about 68 people on my email list that weren't on my email list prior to me doing the webinar. But I also found that there were certain things that I did in my launch that is probably the reason that it failed. So I want to go through this for those of you that are looking to launch a course in the near future so that hopefully you can not make these same mistakes that I made. So my first major mistake is that I got desperate. Because of my situation prior to launching my course, I didn't have to launch it at that point, but I had gotten desperate. I wanted to make money. I wanted to prove that I could do this whole thing. And so whenever you get desperate, you start letting things slide that you shouldn't. You don't work to make sure you have the highest quality product. You work to get something that you can sell to get money. And that was probably the biggest mistake that I had made, is I was trying to do way too many things and that I was scattered and I wasn't making the best products for people. I also wasn't focusing on the right things leading up to that. A second major mistake I made is that I needed to focus on getting traffic and getting a community before I focused on selling a product. And this is something that I think people had said, and I was like, oh, well, my community's different. Like, I have 68 people for my webinar. Like, I'm gonna do great. And I think that that was ultimately a failure of mine, is that I thought that I was gonna be good because I had found alternate ways of getting the word out, but I hadn't really developed a community or an influence for all these other people to trust me enough to buy my product. So because of that, I shifted my focus from being focused on creating products to being focused on getting traffic and creating a community. The third thing that I've learned from this is that what needs to always be the top priority is serving people. Yes, you need to make money for the work that you're doing and the products that you're building, but what needs to be the top priority if you actually want to be successful is to serve other people and giving them what they need at that time. And so in my case, my product was something that I could put together, but it wasn't the best thing to serve people at the time. I was also too focused on trying to make sales and trying to get money to actually make sure that my product was best for serving people, that it was the best that it could be, and that it was packed with all the knowledge that they need. And instead I was focused on creating a product I could sell. And so I think having those shifts and decreasing your desperation and focusing instead on serving people and serving your community and creating a community, when you do those things first, you're probably going to have a much more successful launch than when you are solely focused on making money. So while it's an unfortunate situation that happened to me, I'm not going to try and hide it and be like, oh, I was always successful. No, I made mistakes, but I'm going to learn from my mistakes. And so one of the quotes that I really, really like is that there is no failure, only feedback. And so from this event, you could say it was a failure, but I'm not going to take it as in I'm a failure or my business is a failure. I'm going to take it as feedback. And I've worked with people to figure out why did they refund, and I'm going to in the future create better products that are going to serve them better, that are going to make people want to stay within, you know, my programs, and also to get into my programs, because they're going to be focused on serving the people that I'm trying to serve and the reason I created this business. So if you are out there and you've had a failed launch, I want to know that you're not alone, and this can be a really stressful and frustrating time. So I hope that this is helpful for you moving forward. I hope that you can try and take feedback if you have had a failed launch. And if you haven't even launched yet, I hope that you can learn from these things that I've had to learn from my failed launch. I hope to see you guys in the next video. Thank you.